In 2009, BMW released the S1000R, a motorcycle that had almost as much horsepower as it did kilograms. It was the first road-going supersport fitted with ABS and traction control from factory, and it redefined what could be done with a 1000cc inline-4 engine. And in 2010, Ayrton Bardavini proved it by winning every single race except one in the FIM Superstock World Championship, the series where the bikes most closely resemble the road version. 4 years later, Michael Dunlop demonstrated it again with his win at the 2014 Isle of Man TT. The same year that BMW asked the question, how do we make the S1000RR more fun? This is the BMW M1000R. Like most manufacturers making naked bikes at the time, BMW looked to American street stunt riding culture throughout the 90s and early 2000s that had created a new class of motorcycle, literally built from the wreckage of failed stunts and crashed sport bikes. Stripped back fairings, wider, more upright handlebars and shorter gear ratios. A bike that had more leverage over the front end for turning tighter corners through city streets, upright geometry because you don't need a race tuck and fairings when you aren't going that fast, and more power where you need it, at lower RPM. 10 years later, BMW have a bike that bumps shoulders with giants in the class, like the Ducati Street Fighter V4 and the Brutale RR from MV Agusta. But unlike those bikes, in order to get your hands on one of these, especially in competition trim like this, you don't need to open an early Leering centre. But that's still 11 grand more expensive than the S model. So you might be thinking to yourself, but Hans, what do you get for the extra euros, yeah? You get big bike with lots of carbon fiber, yeah, it's very good, very good. It's very German bike here, you get lots of carbon fiber, yeah, carbon wheels, look at that, so nice, very good. It's got a clear clutch cover on it. I don't know about that one. Big wings on it so you can take off at the airport, yeah, international flight. It's not. The most noticeable difference is in the donk. The S makes a respectable 160 horsepower and 114 newton meters of torque, whereas the M makes a significant 210 horsepower, and for all intents and purposes, the same torque at 113 newton meters. Not only is it significantly more powerful, but it also makes that power differently, because just like the backyard-built street fighters of the early 2000s, it is exactly the same engine you find in the Supersport RR, so it makes its power at higher RPM. And combining that with a larger rear sprocket and shorter internal gear ratios produces a totally different riding experience. The brochure from BMW quite conservatively says a dash of madness, but that's borderline misleading. This thing is absolutely mental. Controlling all that is the extra Race Pro riding modes which you don't get on the standard S1000, and carrying that down the road is fully adjustable electronic suspension on the end. And so that brings me to the geometry and the suspension on the bike. The geometry is really good for sport bike riding. The M version has extra wide handlebars, which give you this really good leverage over the front end, which is fantastic. But the issue with it is that the bend in the bar where your hands are isn't really swept back enough. So what ends up happening is your hand is left in kind of an unnatural position,
And because of that, over time, after about an hour or so, your wrists start to hurt. Now this is something that you might get used to if you owned the bike for a little while, but for me, coming from an R7 and getting on this, I find this less comfortable than the R7. Now that's saying something. Combined with that handlebar issue is the suspension on this bike being set up very much like a race bike. Yes, you have fully electronic adjustable suspension, which is fantastic. However, the softest setting for me doesn't really feel soft enough. Now, I'm a pretty heavy guy. I weigh about 125 kilos at the moment. And even for me, I'm finding the suspension to be too stiff. Even when I put it in rain mode or the softest suspension setting rather than the sport setting. Now, what the suspension doesn't really help with is the fact that this bike has carbon wheels if you buy the competition spec from the dealership. Now, I don't know about where you live, but here in Victoria, Australia, carbon wheels are just a recipe for disaster. Our roads are not very great. They're not looked after as much as they should be. And so the whole time I'm riding this bike, I'm thinking, oh no, the carbon wheels, the carbon wheels. I know they're supposed to be strong, but the fact of the matter is, carbon wheels are going to crack before forged alloy wheels will. Now, if you buy the standard S1000R, you get cast aluminium wheels. If you buy the M, you get forged alloy, and if you buy the competition, you get the carbon wheels. So that is something to keep in mind, but I don't really consider the carbon wheels a deal breaker on the bike for road riding, because you can buy the lower spec version, which just has the forged alloy wheels, which are very light, but not as light as carbon, just way less likely to crack on you, or at least subconsciously less likely to crack on you.
All right, so we've been out riding for a day on the M1000R. It's a really good bike in the hills. I really can't put enough emphasis on how good the bike handles in tight corners and sweepers and when you're going fast. The issues that I have with this bike, not so much the issues, but the downsides that I've found while riding this bike around was never in any of the fast stuff. It was always on the road where there's traffic and I've got a filter, or I'm sitting on the highway for a long time. I guess the thing that really throws me off about this bike is that it doesn't do everything that the naked bike part should do. It does everything that the super sport bike should do. It goes really fast in the hills, great in sweepers, great at low speed maneuvering, and great at tight corners. But you leave the twisties, or you head out to the twisties, you spend an hour on the road on this thing, and your wrists are hurting, your fingers have been vibrated to hell because the extra length in the bars just makes everything vibrate. You can't see anything out of the mirrors because of the vibration either. You know, there's so many good things about this bike that make it an absolutely incredible machine. I just don't see why you'd want to get this over the standard version if it wasn't for that super sport engine that's in this. If I won this bike in a competition or was given it, I could see myself actually going and buying the standard handlebars and putting it on, just to make it a little bit more comfortable, but predominantly to try and take advantage of some of the things that make naked bikes so good. I couldn't see myself riding this bike for hours at a time. I really don't think this is a very comfortable bike to go on a trip through the high country, you know, 5-6 hour rides on. And that's something that really appeals to me about getting a naked bike instead of a super sport. So after riding the MT09 SP and the Street Triple 765 Moto 2, I just can't see how this would be a better naked bike than those. This is a much better super sport bike for the road than the S1000RR, but strangely enough, I think I'd rather go touring on the S1000RR instead of this. So who is this bike for? Well, This bike doesn't really suit the type of person who is a very capable rider and might go fast in the hills, but also wants to do long distance. That would definitely fit the S1000R a lot better. But in saying that, this is still a fantastic bike and I've had a fantastic time on it. It's ridiculously fast. It handles extremely well. The electronics package works great. The suspension's a little bit stiff and I'm a little bit paranoid about the carbon wheels, but otherwise, I can't really fault it for being an M edition bike. So they've really fit the brief well with that from BMW. And I really do appreciate that side of it. I just feel like the S1000R for 11 grand less money is A, more than enough bike, and B, probably good enough for everything that you're ever gonna wanna do on this bike anyway. Plus it's more comfortable. So if you're not a weekend warrior and you actually ride the thing every single day, I'm gonna say save the money and buy the S1000R instead of the M1000R, unless you really like carbon fiber. All right, that's gonna go ahead and do it for the review today of the M1000R. Thank you very much for watching. I know it was a bit of a gap between the last video and this one. We're trying to increase the production quality. By we, I mean myself, and now obviously I've got Pat helping me, which is awesome. But yeah, we're trying to get some really cool stuff happening. So sometimes it takes a little bit longer to get a video together. But I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and let me know what the next bike you want to see me ride is.